Well, hello, and welcome again to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host for this evening, and my name is Charlie Bluehawk. Last night, we talked about blame the victim and why, for some reason in our culture, it's so easy to point at the victim and to blame them for what was done to them. They'll go into court, a woman will be raped, and she'll say, well, she was wearing something provocative. Or a man is beaten senseless with hammers, and he'll be told you shouldn't be in that neighborhood. A woman who's carjacked and raped and tortured, well, she had no right to be driving that kind of car. And the other thing, of course, that we're told is, bankers are our friends, and we should give them trillions of dollars of money to waste on themselves after they've robbed us and left us jobless and homeless and starving in the streets. I have no idea. I mean, when I was a very, very, very small child and still was living with my original parents, I suppose you can call them, my mother being angry with my father, and I was about 3 or 4 at the time, my mother wanted to teach my father a lesson. So she had a few of her boyfriends at this apartment complex in a place called Anaheim, California, which is yet another suburb of Los Angeles. My mother arranged to have several of her boyfriends gang rape me. In order to teach my father a lesson. Now, the joke ultimately was on my mother because my father didn't care. Now, after my mother had arranged for me to be gang raped by several of her boyfriends, my mother was completely disgusted with me. And she was disgusted with me because she had allowed myself to be gang raped. I was 3 or 4, and her boyfriends were, in their 20s. And it was so easy for her to blame me for being gang raped by her boyfriends. Why do you suppose that is? I mean, I still don't get it. And needless to say, it's taken a while to get over it. Actually, the point where my original parents actually, at the age of 5, dropped me in the street and left me to die was probably the highlight of my childhood. At least I was rid of them. So why are we so easy to blame the victim? Why is it so easy for us to do that? I mean, bankers have stolen all of the money in the Western world, and yet we're giving them more. And bankers are robbing us even now. And we still won't blame them. We still won't turn to them and say, give us our money back. What is wrong with us? I mean, how stupid must we possibly be? From what I have seen in our world, the only people who understand the concept of let's work together for a common cause and we'll all profit, the only people who understand this instinctively are the bad people. Evil people know that if they work together, they can accomplish anything. And yet the number of times I've said these words to supposedly good people, if we work together, there is nothing that we cannot achieve. Together. And the blank stares I get, it's astonishing. I used to say that in meetings in corporate America and when I was talking to investors for various projects that I had developed. And every time I said those words, I was instantly marked as a fool. I was instantly earmarked as weak and stupid and spineless and someone to use it and throw away. And over, this kept happening. And I would be so polite and so understanding and so forgiving. Then about 3 months would go by of people trying to rob and steal from me and basically use me as a punching bag. And finally, one day I would just say no. And I would be like a wall. And by that point, these really stupid people had no place else to go. So the business died because they were so busy trying to con me out of what was mine, simply because I had made the statement, if we all work together for a common cause, we can achieve anything, which they took to be a sign of weakness on my part. And after 3 months of being very polite and them trying to cheat me at every level, all of a sudden they hit that wall, which was me, because you can't cheat me, at least not anymore. And at that point, they had backed themselves into a corner. There's no place that the conversation could possibly go because they had revealed themselves and their true intentions. So maybe we are just cattle. Maybe our masters are right, and frankly, we don't deserve any better. So tonight, I thought we might chat about as the world changes and how after 4 years of living in hell, which started with my departure from the United States for a better life, quote unquote, in New Zealand, where I was yet again lied to about everything. I see the world, you all, following in my footsteps. And I'm really sorry to see that. I mean, when I talk about, you following in my footsteps, I see that people who are doing very well, had jobs, homes, families, vacations out of town, they're now losing their jobs, their homes, and their families are falling to pieces. I mean, in the United States alone, there are minimum 20 million people today out of work, minimum. And that doesn't even begin to count those who are underemployed or partially employed and losing everything. I mean, I remember the first time I had a major economic loss. It was a real estate investment I worked on out in the desert of Southern California in the late 1990s. I was cheated out of 500,000 US dollars in real estate and probably 250,000 in cash equities. And this was all done by people who call themselves, family to me. Oh, come, Charlie, be part of the family. Work with us. We'll share everything. Yeah, that goes a long way with me nowadays. And then my second great financial loss is when in 2007 I moved to New Zealand again because I had been invited there for 6 years by the government of New Zealand, by the corporations of New Zealand, by my own attorney in Auckland. I was invited to New Zealand. They kept saying they needed desperately high-end professionals. They were looking towards a bright future, how friendly the Kiwi. I hate using the word Kiwi because it makes a New Zealander sound like a hobbit, cute and cuddly and, could never be mean or nasty. And again, there was that word family. So after 3 years in New Zealand, unending prejudice and bigotry and abuse, I again lost everything. I packed what little I could afford to carry with me, basically 2 suitcases and my old laptop, found homes for all of my cats, the closest thing I've ever had to real family, and fled again, this time to Europe. And so it's been real tough 4 years for me. As we've chatted about previously, the 2 great delusions of my life have been removed from my consciousness forever. The first being, 1, people were basically good. That just isn't true. And 2, that love was the single most powerful, most positive, most important thing you could have in your life, and you needed it before anything else. And that, of course, as I learned in Europe, was absolutely not true. And, so I lost more than I thought I had. I lost my childhood, a childhood I never really had. But now, you're losing everything you have. And so I have sympathy for you, but honestly not that much. Because prior to this, I tried for years to warn you that this was going to happen. I tried to explain to you how if we stood together, there it is again, that statement, if we stood together, there's nothing that we could not accomplish together. And then none of this would have happened. So where were you? You were too busy playing. You were too busy having sex. You were too busy drinking, doing drugs, just enjoying yourself. Your fancy cars you couldn't afford. You were partying while, the Titanic sinks underneath you. So today, when I talk about the village, and I talk about running away and hiding, I don't do this lightly. I don't say to you it's time to run and hide because I'm a coward. I'm telling you because after 40 years of this, I know we can't win. I've tried. It's time to turn and run. Now is the time. You see, I've already lived through what is happening to you now. And I've found ways not only to survive, but to prosper, and I'm beginning to thrive, really for the first time in my life. And all it cost me was everything I ever had, twice. The honest to God truth is I'm not the same guy who fled the United States in August 2007. I don't know who I am anymore. I really don't. But I'm not that guy, that poor, sad little soul who fled the States looking for a good job, a career, and women who remembered what it was like to actually be women, and who actually liked the fact that they were women. and like the fact that I was a man. That poor little guy who fled the States in 2007 in August, that poor little soul was beaten down, broken, destroyed. Everything that he had aspired to, just to be a good guy, just to be honest and hardworking and forthright, that's all been beaten out of him. He's gone. Who am I? Honest to God, I have no idea. I really, truly do not know who I am. I don't. But as I see the world change, and for me, every time I go downtown, anywhere in a little city I'm living in Europe, everything changes. The streets change, the paths through the park change, the stores change. I went to the market yesterday, took the same side street out of this little village I'm currently living in, walking into the main town to go shopping for food. As I walked down the side street, as I'd done dozens of times before, I get to the end of the street where it used to join the main road, and I turn right, go up the main road, cross the bridge, and go to the little local store. But today, or rather yesterday, instead of that little side street connecting to the main road, all of a sudden now it's a cul-de-sac. Not only is it a cul-de-sac, but there are trees between me and the main road, and there are no paths through this park anymore because the park isn't there anymore. It's totally the same street, but it's different. How do I explain that? Haven't a clue. I did have to go up 3 streets just to get to the main road this time. And these kind of changes are continuing now, and they're nonstop. Every time I leave my little room, no matter where I am in Europe, I go outside and everything is the same, but slightly different. Now I remember these kinds of things happening to me back in the States and then in New Zealand, but not like this. I mean, occasionally they would happen, and honestly I did try really hard not to notice, and I still try not to notice. But when the end of my street vanishes, and instead of connecting to the main road, all of a sudden there are trees and a wall that apparently have been there for years, I have to notice. I have no choice because now I have to figure out a way of getting to the main road. Many years ago, when I was still living in Los Angeles, I still remember when a Circuit City store appeared overnight in what had been a tire store parking lot. It was a place called Silver Lake, again, a suburb of Los Angeles. I was on my way to my singing lesson, driving down Sunset Boulevard, which I did every week for months. No changes. I'm very set in my schedules. And there, instead of the tire store parking lot, there was a Circuit City store. And there it was. Luckily, I was used to this sort of thing, or, at least I didn't go wow and crash my truck as I was driving. But since coming to Europe and having met my soulmate, quote unquote, these changes are happening daily and have been for the last almost a year now. I mean, they would happen daily if I actually left my flat every day, which I don't do. I try to stay home because my theory is if I leave the house, well, it's just a little room in the house, I'll spend money, and frankly, I don't have that much money to spend, virtually nothing at the moment. But being a guy, I forget things. I have a terrible memory, or I used to have a terrible memory. Now I remember everything. Again, a side effect of meeting my soulmate here in Europe and having her rip apart our joined soul into so many pieces, spitting on them, and doing a cute little dance on my bones. She actually, the true love of my life, actually enjoyed raping the soul out of my body on a nightly basis. And that was infinite amounts of fun, and I highly recommend that if you meet your soulmate, you turn and you run and you don't ever stop. But our world is changing every day. And I have no idea what the outcome will be. I don't even know who I am anymore. I truly don't. I continue to do this show with the hope that you will step up and work with me. Because, and I'm going to say it, because together we can achieve anything. Together. But honest to God, I'm not waiting for you. I'm working on several projects simultaneously as I seem to be unemployable after being in the same business for 25 years. International IT, management consulting, public relations. Apparently I know too much. And because I know too much, no one will hire me. So now I'm looking at Asia, where I might actually be appreciated for actually knowing how to do my job, because apparently in the West we are just too stupid to live. And yet I'm on all of these job boards around the world, and I see my own story now for the last 4 years being repeated over the globe. Other high-end professionals are suddenly finding themselves unemployable. Why? Because they know how to do their jobs. People with more experience than me. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've seen people 30 years, 35 years in the same business. They're on the job boards just like I was and sometimes still am, going, what's going on? Why can't I find a job? What is the matter? Has the world suddenly gone mad? Well, it hasn't suddenly gone mad. We've been mad for quite a long time now. And to employ people today who know how to do their jobs is counter to our master's plans. They want failure worldwide so they can use our fear of unemployment, of homelessness, of starvation as tools against us. So you can't hire bright people to work in your company. You can't hire intelligent people. You cannot hire experienced people, because those are the people who are, it's tough to instill fear in, because they know how to do their jobs. So you hire people who have no clue what their job is and then torture them because they don't know. I saw that in New Zealand. It was quite remarkable. The New Zealanders have the many so bizarre beliefs. They actually believe that if you hire someone for a job that they've never done before in their entire life, that somewhere in their genetic code, somewhere buried deep in their DNA, they actually know how to do this job and will do the job perfectly without you training them or telling them a thing. And when it becomes very apparent you haven't a clue in hell how to do the job that you've never done before in your life, they then attack you and abuse you for it. New Zealand is not a human culture. Human beings live there, but it is not a human culture. It's truly remarkable. I highly recommend you never go there to find out for yourself, because frankly it just isn't worth it. So what about us? All of us, you and me. Well, last time I counted, there were 300 million people in the United States. Now, there might be 100 masters in the United States, and there might be a few thousand Mandarin, their servants. There might be a couple 100,000 slaves who willingly serve them. But there are 300 million of us, and most of us in the United States have guns. So am I missing something here? I mean, I'm no good at math. But if just 2% of the population of the USA, I'm figuring that's about 6 million people, most of whom have guns, got together, and half of those people, 3 million people, went to Wall Street, I'm wisping again. 3 million people with guns go to Wall Street with their guns out in the open. That way you're not, accused of carrying a concealed weapon. The other 3 million go to Washington, D.C. I am guessing that you would outnumber the police, the militia, any private armies our masters have in residence, and they have their own private corporate armies. I'm guessing as Americans, if 3 million armed Americans walked into the Wall Street bankers' offices, guns drawn, and do a citizen's arrest, well, the other 3 million armed Americans go to Congress and then arrest the House and the Senate, do a citizen's arrest. And then, if you're not too busy, drop by the White House, say hi, and arrest everyone there you can find. Again, do a citizen's arrest. Now, if you're not big into traveling, but you're still a human being and you vaguely consider yourself, cognizant and aware, and you got a gun, well, stay at home, go to the state capitals, and do a citizen's arrest of the governor and the state houses. Put them in jail. And then you decide. Because you have the U.S. Constitution, you have the Bill of Rights, and you have guns. Constitution, our masters hate it. It's just a piece of paper to them. To you, it's your life, it's your soul, you're American. You might try to remember that once in a while. I've actually read the Bill of Rights. I've actually read the U.S. Constitution. Have you? It's quite a document. I remember trying to read it on my last TV show, my previous effort trying to reach out to you, called honestgovernment.org, and you didn't support me there either. It actually took me 2 weeks of practice before I could read the U.S. Constitution on air. And you know what? I still cried. I cried because what our country was supposed to be and what it really is heartbreaking. I know you won't bother to read the U.S. Constitution. You know, you can't be bothered. There's a game on tonight. You know, Britney Spears is pregnant again and still a lesbian. I mean, Barack Obama is being knighted by the Queen, and, you know, Prince William got married the other day. You got to check out how he and his 12th cousin are doing. And then you have to go online and, you know, buy collectibles. You know, it's okay. It's your decision because it's your future. It's your life. See, I know what you're going to do. You're not going to do anything. That's why I say it's time to run and hide. That's why we have a plan. It's called The Village. And why we're working on it even now. So you know, go watch the game. Say hi to Brittany when you see her. Check out Lindsay Lohan. I'm sure that's still big news. Madonna's around somewhere, I'm sure, you know, practicing black magic. Go have fun. Enjoy. When you're doing the yard sale on your front lawn because you've been thrown out of your house for no particular reason and you have to sell everything you own in the world for nothing, that's okay. Don't worry about it. When your job is downsized or you're cut back or laid off, it's okay. There are tent cities. You can go live in a tent city with your children in that big expensive SUV of yours paying $4 a gallon for gas, which should only be like 25 cents. That's okay. Go for it. See, I've been doing this too long because I know you won't do anything. That's why I'm not trying anymore. But for the one or two of you who remember that you're human beings, that you're men and women, you can stand on your own two legs and say no, send us an email because I'm going to say it one more time. Together, we can accomplish anything. Together. For all of us here at the2012fad.com, this is Charlie Bluehawk, wishing you a really good day and reminding you, please, keep that one good thought. The 2012 Fad is brought to you by Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, a series of 5 erotica horror novels about a fallen angel finding his way back to regain his own soul, and how the CIA war against the human race, their black magic, captures and traps him in the body of a mind-controlled slave designed to hunt down and to kill their god, their Satan.